Today's notes are on sample space. This is where we do a series of events followed by each other, and then we make a list of all of the possible outcomes. So an example could be pulling a marble out of a bag and then throwing a dice, or pulling something out from a list and then flipping a coin. There's going to be a series or a sequence of events that are going to happen, and we're going to make a list of all of the possible outcomes. There are two ways that we can go about this. We can use the area model. In science, they may refer to this as the Punnett square, or I can also make a tree. Okay. So my first example, it says for breakfast you can choose from the following choices: oatmeal, cornflakes, or scrambled eggs. I'm going to go ahead and abbreviate that. O is for oatmeal, C is for cornflakes, S is for scrambled eggs. So in my Punnett square, I have three options. I have oatmeal, cornflakes, scrambled eggs. With my breakfast, I can drink milk, juice, orange juice, or apple juice, or hot chocolate. So this time I have four options. I'm going to go with M for milk, O for orange juice, A for apple juice, and let's go H for hot chocolate. So on the other side of my Punnett square, I now have four options: milk, orange juice, apple juice, hot chocolate. How many combinations or outcomes of a food and drink are possible? Okay, so we have a series of events here. I'm choosing from the oatmeal, cornflakes, scrambled eggs, and then I'm choosing from milk, orange juice, apple juice, hot chocolate. Okay, so let's just go with oatmeal first. If my selection was oatmeal, I could then choose milk to go with it. I could choose orange juice to go with my oatmeal. I could choose apple juice to go with my oatmeal. I could also choose hot chocolate to go with my oatmeal. Okay, so if that first choice is oatmeal, I still have the option between milk, orange juice, apple juice, or hot chocolate. Okay, so same thing below that. When I say C and M, that's my abbreviation for I chose cornflakes, and then I chose milk. Or I chose cornflakes, and then I chose my orange juice. I chose cornflakes with apple juice. Or I chose cornflakes with hot chocolate. Okay? That order doesn't matter, but I chose one thing from this list with one thing from this list. Okay? Choosing hot chocolate with cornflakes is the same thing as choosing cornflakes with hot chocolate. It's still the same outcome in the end. For my last row, I could do scrambled eggs with milk, scrambled eggs with orange juice. Again, I could flip the order. I could say it's the same thing as apple juice with scrambled eggs, or I could do my hot chocolate with scrambled eggs. So when I get done, I chose one from this list of 3 and one from this list of 4. That gave me 12 possible outcomes. My other way is to make a tree. So I still have my 3 choices: oatmeal, cornflakes, scrambled eggs. From the oatmeal, I could then choose my milk, my orange juice with oatmeal, my apple juice with the oatmeal, or the hot chocolate with the oatmeal. Okay? Where you need to be careful is you need enough room for your tree to give you all the options. So cornflake with milk, orange juice, apple juice, hot chocolate. I could do my scrambled eggs with milk, orange juice, apple juice, hot chocolate. Okay, so as you're writing those, make sure you give yourself enough space. So if you had more than just 4 options, say you had like 5 or 6, I need to give myself a bigger room for my branch. If I was to do another event after this, I would need to give myself even more space because each of these would have a branch coming off of them as well. Okay. Since we only had 2 different events though, I had my my oatmeal, cornflakes, scrambled eggs. I was matching that with milk, orange juice, apple juice, hot chocolate. I have my 3 branches, each of them have 4. So 3 times 4, again, gives me 12 possible outcomes. Go ahead and pause that if you need more time to write that down. My next example is tossing 2 possible coins. What are my outcomes? Well, if I toss one coin, I could get a head or a tails. So I'm going to abbreviate it as H and T. Same thing, if I flip it again, I could get a heads or a tails. So I could do a heads the first time and get lucky and get a heads the second time. I could get a heads the first time and a tails the second time. I could get a tails the first time and then a heads. That is a different event this time than that one, because they are two separate coins. Even though it's still the same coin, I am doing it 2 different times. So getting a tails first and then a heads is separate than getting a heads first and then a tails. And then I could also get a tails and then a tails. So my possible outcomes, I had 2 options the first time times 2 options the second time gives me 4 possible outcomes. Okay. When it comes to the tree, again, I just have heads or tails. Each branch would then have a heads to heads, or I could get a heads first and then a tails. I could get a tails first and then a heads, a tails first, and then another tails. When I'm tallying up my total number of outcomes, I'm only adding this far column over here. Okay, these original branches are just what I got the first time. So I do only have 1, 2, 3, 4 outcomes. Should be the same result as last time. Okay, as you're going through that branch, don't count everything that's there. I go heads to heads, that's 1 outcome. Heads to tails, that's another outcome. Tails to heads, and then tails to tails. So I have 4 possible outcomes. If I was to flip a coin the third time, then each of these would have another branch of heads or tails, heads or tails, heads or tails, heads or tails. Okay? You can use either method you like, whichever one makes more sense to you. But if you have more than 2 outcomes, then you have to use the tree diagram. Okay, my Punnett square only works as if I have an outcome over here and an outcome over here. Okay, if I have more than that, I need a branch for each one as I keep doing my series of events. So I can't have a Punnett square unless it's only 2. Okay. My tree diagram will get very large very quick though, so make sure you give yourself space if you're doing 3 or 4 different events. You may have also noticed that there's a shortcut as I was doing this. Notice that I said in our Punnett square, I had 3 options for the first one and then 4 options for the second one. Think of a lattice box in elementary school. When I multiplied those 2 numbers, 3 times 4, it gave me my number for the inside. Same thing here. The fundamental counting principle states that to find the total number of outcomes for as many events as I would like, I'm going to multiply the number of outcomes for each event. So my breakfast sample example gave me 3 options: oatmeal, cornflakes, scrambled eggs. I was taking that by 4 choices of juice. So 3 times 4 left me with 12 outcomes. Okay. If you're going to figure where that came from, go ahead and label it. This was my option for the food, and this was my option for the drinks. Okay. This is just a shortcut. If your homework tonight says, what is the number of outcomes, I'm going to go ahead and times them together. If it would like a list of the possible outcomes, that's when I need to make the tree diagram or my Punnett square to make a list of orange juice to oatmeal and all those options and combinations. Okay, so same thing for the second one. If I rolled my number cube, that would be something that would have a 1 out of 6 odds. Okay, but we're just looking for the total number of outcomes. So the number of times for that event, we would just say is 6. I'm then tossing a coin. I would have 2 possible outcomes for that. And then I'm doing a spinner that's divided into 4 equal sections. So 6 times 2, there's 12 possible combinations, times 4 more for my spinner, gives me a total of 48 outcomes. Okay. I can make a diagram if I'd like. So for example, I would have 6 coins. They could be heads or tails. Tails, heads or tails, heads or tails. It's just abbreviation. But then from there, each of these branches is going to have another 4. Okay, so keep in mind, this is where it gets very big very quick. I had 6 options for my number cube. Each of that branched off twice for my coin. That's where I got the 12 from. And then times it by 4 options for my spinner. So for example, I could get a 1 on my number cubes, a heads, and then spin a 1. I could get 1 on my number cube, get a heads, and then spin a 2. Okay. If it asked you for the list of the sample space, that's when I need to make this tree diagram. All the question asked us though was how many outcomes are possible. That's what allowed me to just times them together and say there was 48 outcomes.